Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 63. I'm Jennie, and I help multi-passionate creatives like you kick overwhelm to the curb and fit all of your shiny objects into a life and business you love. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you know I'm actually pretty woo-woo. But for the last several episodes, I have been talking all about action taking. And forgive me for using a gendered word here, but the masculine way to go about doing business. And it's really important, I think, to have a balance. So I've decided that since it's been a while, I'm going to devote an episode to the more, quote, feminine way to move through the world and your life and your business. But I think it's really important to state for the record that I was raised in an environment where anything new agey or spiritual that didn't equal Christian spirituality was really looked down upon. If incense was burning in the room, the opinions of the other people in there could immediately be dismissed. Not to mention, prior to graduating with a degree in theatrical costume design, I was an environmental chemistry major, aka a hard scientist. So the only thing that eventually brought me over to the dark side, if you will, and I'm just kidding, it's the light side, was hard science. Facts and figures that proved that this stuff isn't all make-believe. But that's the thing, you guys. Manifestation has hard science that backs it up. Neuroscientists have studied how history's great teachers, like the Buddha, changed their own brains to create greater happiness and love and increased wisdom. And if we follow these same principles, we can create more fulfilling relationships and a deeper spiritual life and a greater sense of fulfillment. Now, of course, the Buddha was not trying to manifest a Tesla. Manifestation is indeed about bringing more abundance into your life, and oftentimes that looks like more material things. But it can also be increased love or greater career satisfaction as well. The same scientific principles apply when it comes to rewiring your brain, and that's what makes this so exciting. It is real. It isn't make-believe, no matter how much you might be resistant to the notion that something like this could have its roots in hard science. So, if you've been curious about manifestation, even if you've just been giving it the side eye for the last decade while other people were talking about it and you were writing them off as Looney Tunes, I'm going to give you some facts that back up that this ish really works. I'm also going to give you a bunch of tools and tricks that I myself utilize, and even some ways to ease yourself in if the notion of manifestation is still kind of iffy to you by the end of this episode. Also, when I outlined this episode, it was the longest outline of any solo episode that I have ever created. And I know you guys are digging the shorter format. I mean, interviews are what they are. It takes as much time as I need to extract my guests' brilliance. But with the solo episodes, I'm going to try really hard to keep them under 30 minutes. So this is officially part 1 of the manifestation series, if you will. And there will be a second part coming in 2 weeks that will conclude everything that we are discussing here today. If you are already a believer in manifestation, this episode will relight a fire under you. You already know that it's not work. I know that's a double negative, but it is not sitting by the pool waiting for your life to just magically improve. That misconception was perpetrated by The Secret and its rise to popularity however many years ago. The idea that manifestation is making a wish, slapping an image of it up on a vision board, and then sitting back and waiting for all your dreams come true. That is not how it works. It takes mad discipline, you guys. Just like actively pursuing your goals and dreams takes discipline. So none of these tactics are necessarily easy, but I do think manifestation is easier because there's a bit of a surrender component rather than constantly pushing a massive snowball up a hill like you experience with the more masculine, or let's call it active, way of doing things. So even if you are a believer in manifestation, maybe you've dropped off in your practice a little bit. Maybe your discipline has been waning. That was the case for me. And then I read the book that inspired today's episode. It's called 3 Simple Steps. It's by Trevor Blake. And what today's episode is going to do is to summarize the principles discussed in this book, plus some others that I've gleaned over the years. But more importantly, I'm going to try to break these principles down into action steps that you can take to make manifestation a regular part of your life and an effective way to get what you want. Because that's what you're here for, right? To learn how to have it all, you can, and I am here to help you. So I made a downloadable checklist of action steps for you guys. If you stick around to the end, I will tell you how to get your hands on that. So without further ado, let's get into it. 3 Simple Steps is a great book. It's a little bit older, but I will save you the time, busy multi-passionate that you are, and distill the entire principles outlined in that book down into one main idea. And it is this: all thoughts are self-fulfilling prophecies. So let that sink in. Sometimes you have a dream and you're like, oh, there's no way I could ever be a millionaire, for example. But simply by virtue of you having the thought, it has the power to come true. So here's how this works. Situations occur in our environment and we see, hear, smell, taste, and sense that situation. And the media and the people in our lives who have helped us to form our identities influence the thoughts that we have about that situation. Those thoughts then trigger feelings that cause us to react in a certain way. So if you think about this like a mathematical equation, the situation plus the thought equals the reaction, okay? So the strategy here, step 1, if you will, is that we must change our thoughts, since all of our thoughts are self-fulfilling prophecies. We must change our thoughts from being against the things that we don't want to being for the things that we do want. And that makes sense, right? But here's the thing. Humans are born with a negativity bias. It's an innate biological function inside every human being that dates all the way back to prehistoric times that kept us on our toes so that we didn't get eaten by saber-toothed tigers. So it is inherent in our nature, through no fault of our own, completely unrelated to how we were brought up, to skew negative when perceiving our reality. So this requires a great deal of unlearning to change our thoughts from being against things to being for things, from being slightly or greatly negative to being primarily positive, ideally positive all the time. And we'll get to that. So here's another thing that's important to understand. Thoughts are high energy. So everything has energy, which is scientifically defined as a frequency of vibration at a quantum level or waves of electricity. Everything in the universe is composed of these tiny electrical impulses. So the denser something is, the lower its vibration. A stone is denser than a tree, therefore it is vibrating at a lower frequency. A tree is denser than a human. So after the concept of nothingness, which I understand is very hard to conceptualize because it's nothingness, it's empty. Nothingness is the least dense thing in our experience. After nothingness, thought is the least dense thing. Therefore, it has the highest energy of anything that we can conceptualize. That makes it super, super powerful and potent. And because of that, it has the power to kill or the power to cure. True story. Okay, energy can never be destroyed. If you have a basic concept of the fundamentals of energy, you know this. So that means no thought can ever be deleted, even if you forget that you had it. So Einstein's theory of relativity, which you're all familiar with, even if you don't fully understand what it means or how it works, E equals mc squared, we've all seen that, right? E equals energy, and m is mass, and c is the speed of light. So E is on one side of the equal sign, m is on the other side of the equal sign. They are basically interchangeable. Mass is energy in physical form. So an energetic thought has only one job then, and it is to become its physical equivalent. Every thought has the potential to be the physical equivalent of itself. All right? So therefore, because our thought energies remain conserved, because no energy can ever be destroyed, The reality of your life experience is the result of the thoughts that you have had in your life up until now, even if you don't remember having them. So your current experience is the result of your prior thoughts and your reaction to them. This last part is super, super important, okay? Your reaction to them. Thoughts are neutral. Thought has no consciousness about whether it is good or bad. It just simply exists. All thoughts contain equal power to become reality, whether that is good or bad for us. And this is why control of our mentality is critical. This is why you must have more for thoughts than against thoughts, and why you have to make those forward thoughts bigger and more powerful. So when I first started learning about this, I got super freaked out because I'm sure you've had this experience. Our brains will shoot a thought at us that is like awful. You get on a plane and you think, what if the plane crashes? And it becomes very scary to think that all you have to do is think a thing and it becomes a reality. But don't worry, because thoughts are neutral. It is your emotional reaction to the thought that has the potential to create its physical equivalent. Otherwise, a thought energy can just stay a thought energy. It will never get destroyed. It will just exist as energy. What turns it into a physical reality is the emotional reaction that you have to the thought. So you can have a thought about something super gross, your partner getting in a car accident, your pet dying, crashing in a plane. And if you have control of your mentality, you don't let a flood of emotions begin to fill your body and awful images form in your mind's eye. And you don't start to play it out as a real thing in your imagination. You simply say to yourself, no, when I land in my destination, the first thing I'm going to do is head to the beach and get a pina colada, and I'm gonna sip that pina colada, and your mouth starts to water because you can taste the pina colada and you can feel the sun on your skin and you can smell the salt air. You flood yourself with positive emotions that counter that single against thought that you had, and you're good, okay? So don't get wrapped up in becoming afraid that you're gonna think something and it's gonna become real and your life is gonna fall apart. Mentality control means that the flood of emotions that follow a thought are positive emotions, things that make you feel good. You're daydreaming about all of the awesomeness that is going to happen to you and that you're going to feel when that positive thought becomes your reality. So does that make sense? So here are some tips for controlling your mentality by having more for thoughts. All right? If you don't feel well, don't say that out loud. Instead say, I could use more energy. Or once I'm rested and healthy, I will be fine. Also, avoid using limiting words like can't when referring to yourself. Instead, reach for higher energy statements such as when I can. Avoid the words perhaps, hopefully, one day, maybe, because when you use them, what you're really saying is I would like to, but I can't. It's unlikely. The universe is listening. Eliminate destructive words such as hate from your vocabulary. So replace I hate when that happens with I prefer it when. Try to begin and end your day on a positive note. So before you go to sleep at night, thank yourself for a great day. And when you wake up, the first words in your head should be something like, I feel absolutely fantastic, and I know today is going to be a brilliant success. Say the words aloud. Use all the adverbs and adjectives that you can. They add emotions to the thought. So instead of I feel well, say I feel absolutely, amazingly, vibrantly healthy. This will blow your mind how effective it is. So you know when you feel like you're getting a cold, you can tell your throat is itchy and you're like, shit, what do I do? And sometimes you can go out and buy that oxycillum or whatever that stuff is called, or take a bunch of vitamin C, and sometimes you can stave it off. But I feel like there's a point of no return, and we all know what that is. I was there one time and I pulled out a packet of emergency or something to that effect, and on it was a little affirmation. It was basically, I feel absolutely, amazingly, vibrantly healthy. I said that all day long. I said it 150 times. It was crazy town. Like, I said it out loud. I said it in my head. I said it when I was in the shower. I said it when I was cooking. I said it before I went to bed. I said it over and over and over again that day. I did not get sick. I remember being totally blown away by that because it was overkill. It felt like I was doing it like so much. Felt like my whole day was devoted to saying that affirmation. But you know what? It absolutely worked. This stuff works. You can also control your mentality by controlling your sensory input. And this is even easier than the shifting your mindset to positive thoughts, because this you truly have the ability to control. You can also control your mentality by controlling your sensory input. So what I mean by that, one of the main influences in our immediate environment is the chronic complainer. So nothing unites people more than a common dislike, which means we find ourselves bonded to people who are against something. And that becomes a downward spiraling energy wave. The other influence in our lives is the media. So political, religious, and business institutions understand how to manipulate our thinking. They go to great effort and expense to invade our environment and march unopposed against our mentalities. So if you see something in the media or hear something from a person nearby that triggers a negative thought image, the material realization of that comes into your life, not the thing or person that caused the thought. You are the originator. So research has shown that enduring a stressor like watching scary news or listening to someone spread a stressful rumor at work for more than 30 minutes negatively impacts the region of the brain called the hippocampus. Sustained exposure to this kind of stress increases the rate of cell death in the region of that brain, and it also impairs the hippocampus's ability to create new neurons. And manifestation working is predicated on building new neural pathways. So complainers and negative media cannot coexist with you creating a better life for yourself. Period. Non-negotiable. So, tips for dealing with complainers, or if you are a complainer yourself, listen up. I wrote an article about how many of us are legit addicted to complaining and why that happens and how to counter those tendencies in yourself. So I will include that link in the show notes. I highly, highly recommend that you read it. It is what Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about. Some of us are literally addicted to this. It makes us feel good to complain because it's so habitual at this point. So if that resonates for you a little bit, try this. Every time you feel a complaint coming on, just become self-aware. Stop yourself. You can't delete a thought, but you can have a better thought. So when you catch yourself in the middle of a complaint, stop and reach for something better. Reframe your comments. Instead of, oh, I could never afford that, say, that will look amazing on me when I can afford to buy it. Also, when someone complains to you, redirect the conversation. Now listen, you won't feel as bonded to the chronic complainers in your life. However, you will feel so much better. Your day will feel better. Your energy levels will be higher. Remember to be kind to yourself throughout this process. You're going to mess up. Treat it like a game and start afresh whenever that happens. You're going to want to be mindful of smothering negative thoughts with a positive image instead. So if you're leaving the house and you think to yourself, ugh, the weather sucks, immediately input a different image. Imagination in this case is your salvation. Now, I already hear some of you yelling about spiritual bypassing and toxic positivity. I am not saying don't feel. Absolutely feel. Name the emotion and identify where it resides in your body. Allow it to do its thing. Does it swell to a crescendo? Does it throb? Does it feel like a knife twisting in your gut? Let it do what it's going to. But know this. It is a scientific fact that we only feel an emotion for a maximum of 90 seconds. And I will drop a YouTube link to that research in the show notes. It's fascinating. By all means, go check that out. After 90 seconds, that ongoing emotion is a story that you have about the situation that led to that emotion. In other words, it's your reaction. So now you have the opportunity to reach for a different reaction. As someone who is a fucking pro at wallowing in self-pity, I am not saying this is easy, or that you are always going to choose the high road over binge eating ice cream and ugly crying while you watch sappy romance movies. But there is a better way, and we all have access to it. So when you are ready to stop feeling like garbage, this is what to do. Next up, when someone complains to you, don't try to convert them. Simply choose silence. Let their words float by like clouds. Go to your happy place. Like mentally create a place to escape to. Because eventually people will stop trying to draw you in because you don't react the way they expect anymore. And that's what they need, is your reaction. So they will no longer be satisfied, so they will look elsewhere for someone who will bounce their complaints back to them. Whenever you can, distance yourself from that person. Imagine yourself wearing an invisible mentality shield. Think of Harry Potter's invisibility cloak and have that around, like, it could just be your head, but that is this impenetrable thing that protects you from these outside negative influences. You might have to use your mentality shield every time you go into the office or every time you spend time with your family. But trust that when you don't feed the animals, they will eventually go elsewhere to get fed. And last but not least, transfer responsibility. If you truly find yourself backed against a wall while someone is ranting and raving, throw the responsibility back at them. Say, so what do you intend to do about it? In most cases, these people don't even want a solution. They don't even want sympathy. They literally just want to vent at you. So throwing that question at them tends to stop them in their tracks. So while you exercise those tips about the people in your life, you also need to be selective about the media messages that you allow into your brain and how you react to them. So avoid advertisements that trigger negative images in your mind, like about debt relief, for example, because debt is going to call up a negative thought image every time if you struggle with debt. Also, unfollow social media accounts that trigger you, that trigger comparison issues, that make you feel envious. Any of those things, just unfollow those people. If you insist on keeping abreast of the news, seek independent reporting. I don't know if you guys remember John Krasinski. Am I saying his name right? He started during the pandemic. He started something called Some Good News, I think. And it was absolutely beautiful, and it gave us all something to feel hopeful and positive about. It didn't last very long because the truth is we are addicted to our negative, sensational headlines. But if you must, try to find an impartial news source. I personally stopped paying any attention to the news after the 2016 election. I just couldn't. There was so much hate and vitriol everywhere. On Facebook, I actually sort of disengaged from Facebook at that time. But when that really came back and served me was during the pandemic. And I know that there's this thought that if we stop watching, something is going to happen and we aren't going to know about it. But I promise you that's impossible, because your mom will call you and tell you that you now have to wear a mask whenever you leave the house. Like, I guarantee it. I think that I had a better headspace during everything that we went through for the last 2 years than a lot of the people I know did, because I flatly refused to watch the news. So it really is true what they say in this case: ignorance is bliss. Just some food for thought for you. If you feel you must stay plugged in, just reach for a better image anytime you read a sensational headline. So make a point of retreating to that private mental place, your happy place that you have created for yourself. Force yourself to smile and contemplate that pleasant image, or if it's a memory, and again, feel the emotions, feel the wind on your cheeks through your hair, the sunshine, whatever makes you feel good about that. It is essential to counter the energy drain that just occurred when you let something fearful into your mind. Finally, notice the real love and human goodness all around. It is so good to remind yourself that the world is not a 24/7 place of disappointment, hate, and crime that is portrayed by the media. And it's easy to fall into that for sure. Finally, here is a way to raise your vibration that is legitimately easy. I wanted to give you an easy one on top of those other things that will definitely take some effort on your part. So for this one, listen to solfeggio frequencies. So early research indicates that music set to, for example, 528 hertz has the ability to heal and repair the body. 174 hertz is believed to relieve pain and stress. 396 hertz liberates you from fear and guilt. And there are 9 frequencies in total. All of them raise your vibration, which is the same thing you're doing when you wrangle your mindset to live in positivity rather than negativity. So I'm including a link to a YouTube video that includes all 9 solfeggio frequencies. So you can listen to it when you're washing dishes or out for a walk, or literally anytime you want to up-level your vibration to make yourself more receptive to the abundance that you would like to manifest in your life. But if you simply type solfeggio frequencies into the search, you can pick and choose based on whatever you need or happen to be experiencing that day. So dealing with anxiety, listen to 528. Want to ride the love frequency? Tune into 639. Do you want to awaken your intuition? Listen to 741. So mastering your mindset is no small feat. I get it. But if you work on the steps I've outlined here for the next 2 weeks, you will be primed and ready for steps 2 and 3, which I will explain in part 2 of this series. So keep your eyes peeled for that. It will be episode 65 and it will go live in 2 weeks from today. I hope that this has given you a little teaser of what's possible, which is, in a word, anything, if you are willing to do the work to shift your mindset. So if you found this episode helpful and worthy of a tip, you can show your appreciation by visiting buymeacoffee.com/Jennie O'Connor. You can also show your support by rating and reviewing the show on Apple. Every single review makes my show more likely to get in front of other multi-passionates like you who want to change their lives for the better and can benefit from these tips. Plus, reviews bring me all kinds of joy, so there's that. Also, please come hang out with me on the socials. I'm at Your Creative Fairy Godmother. If you want the free PDF checklist that accompanies this episode, you can grab that at jennieoconnor.com/manifest. It only has the tips that I've shared so far in this episode, but in 2 weeks, it will be updated with all of the tips from parts 1 and part 2. Until next time, remember this: it's already yours. Do you hear that, you guys? Get on out there and do the thing.